Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the 40k Fireside Podcast. I'm David Gaylord, and I'm joined by my good friend Vic Vijay. Together, we discuss 40k and the meta from our perspective, along with events we've recently been to and those that have got coming up. So come on down to the fireside and listen. Alright, everyone, welcome back to the 40k Fireside Podcast, episode 26. We passed the quarter century mark. Today we've had some new releases come up from the Tyranid datasheets. We've got all the datasheets, and we've got what looks like to be a little bit of extras on top of that as well. So, Vic is on holiday, and I thought it would be a really good opportunity to sit down again with Jokull to talk about the Tyranid datasheets, because Jokull's actually played Tyranids for quite a while, and that's actually how Jokull and I first met, funnily enough. He was coming to play the LGT Super Major, and I noticed that he came to play the Invitational as well. And I noticed that he was playing my exact list from leads that I won the Super Major at with the Leviathan Warriors and the Broodlord. And I was like, dude, this guy, I'm playing the Invitational, copy my list. I was like, I got respect for that. So a lot of people in the community kind of weren't a fan of, or aren't a fan of when people just directly copy lists. But given the esports background we both come from, we can both appreciate that. So anyway, Jokull's a fantastic player. He's obviously part of Team Ignite as well. But thanks for coming on the show again, Jokull. Hope you have a good time here.
Thank you so much. Yeah, I remember a while back. My thinking about that was it was the strongest list in the meta. I looked at a few minor tweaks, but I then noticed why you were doing each tweak differently. So I just completely stopped and just went with it and did really well with the list. So I'm very thankful for that. And I would just encourage people, if you see some list you like, try reaching out to the person. They're more than likely to want to help you.
Yeah. And that came to a huge success last episode where we played the Birmingham Teams tournament, and Jokull was the mastermind behind a lot of our pairings and matrices, so he did a lot of that work as well. But without further ado, let's kick into the Tyranid datasheets. Now, I think if you don't play Tyranids, or you're not really interested in this topic, I'll give you a very high-level summary. Tyranids look pretty good, but there's a huge caveat to that, in that this is the first full data sheets that we've seen, so we haven't really got anything to compare it to. We can kind of just compare the ability to other abilities that have been spoiled, but we have no idea whether or not this is like fantastic in the spectrum of armies that will be released. So everything always looks good when it's the very first one and there's nothing else to compare it to. In addition to that, we will be talking about a bunch of stuff in 10th edition. Now, Vic and I have been reading through the rules in preparation for a couple of episodes coming up, and we've been preparing ourselves with the rules, but obviously, having said that, there's a good chance that we get some rules wrong here. So if we do get some rules wrong here, cut us a bit of slack. We're bringing this to you on the day it comes out, so hope you guys enjoy it. But without further ado, Jokull, do you want to start us off with the new rules for Synapse and the Shadow in the Warp?
I think so, and I like the euphemism behind this. People talk about, oh, I don't speak robot. And I think with Tyranids, it's I don't speak bug. It's nice to have two people on here that actually speak bug. But
Yeah.
So for Synapse, if your army faction is Tyranids, while a Tyranid unit from your army is within 6 inches of one or more Synapse models in the army, it is said to be within Synapse range. So quite straightforward. If you take Battle Shock for that unit, you roll 3d6 instead of 2d6.
Nice.
Then compared to leadership. So as you want to be higher than the leadership, that seems an excellent addition. Then we go to Shadow in the Warp. With a Tyranid army, once per battle, during either player's command phase, you can unleash Shadow in the Warp. When you do, each enemy unit on the battlefield must take a Battle Shock test. I think with this, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, and for a reminder, Battle Shock means that you become objective secured 0 and no stratagems can be used on that unit. And in addition, if you're falling back, you need to do a desperate fallback if you are Battle Shocked, if I'm correct. Those are the 3 ways that it affects it. So first of all, Synapse used to be just completely fearless. So Tyranids can be Battle Shocked themselves, which I guess is a bit of a change. And Battle Shock happens if you are below half strength. Or there's other abilities that make you battle shocked as well. So Tyranids can be, affected by that now too, but they can also affect your entire opponent's army, right?
Yeah, my thinking with this is you do this Shadow in the Warp ability during your opponent's command phase. Let's say you run onto your opponent's marker then they could possibly fail leadership test to become objective secured 0, which
Yep.
seems risky, But on the other hand, you could use it defensively. Let's say if someone runs into your markers, you could try and make them objective secured 0. So
Yep.
it just becomes when you want to gamble on this. I think I would be more inclined to use this defensively because it seems more consistent. But both of these abilities don't seem overwhelmingly powerful to me, at least.
Yeah, I guess in terms of the army-wide abilities that we have, like Space Marines get like Advance and Charge or something else at the moment. Chaos Space Marines get Exploding Sixes and whatnot. Or I guess Eldari get reroll a hit or wound roll every time they shoot or fight. It doesn't seem as mind-bendingly good, does it really? I mean, it's a once per game ability, so it is limited in that sense. You're not going to get 5 turns of value out of it. I do like when you say use it defensively too, because if you're against a melee army, perhaps you can try and battle shock them so that they can't use stratagems on their units as well when they're fighting in combat, which is quite good. In addition to that, you can turn off potentially heroic interventions as well, because you can't target the unit with a stratagem if they're battle shocked. But the problem there is that they've got to fail the battle shock test, and that's not exactly undoable, right? I mean, a lot of the units that we've seen have leaderships around 7 or 8, so 7 is obviously the most common denominator between 2d6 of dice. So to hit a 7 is actually you're more than likely to hit a 7. I think it's 63% chance to hit a 7+. So someone in the comments can correct me on that exactly off the top of my head, but it's a very good chance to hit a 7. So how much is this going to impact it? Tough to say, isn't it?
I mean, I think to Chaos Knights with their leadership effective abilities, and I mean, in that Codex and Edition, the results are dramatic. Several minuses, ridiculously bad to fail leadership test. You can make them do all sorts of things. This seems situationally useful with RNG, which is something. I mean, but I think you basically look at, okay, if I use it now, 2 or 3 things would be useful. Let's hope 1 or 2 of them goes through, but it's not. Doesn't seem like something you're counting on. But I mean, consistency is nice. Hopefully, there'll be some minuses that can adjust to this way down the codex.
Yeah, and I guess from a competitive point of view, something that's inconsistent, a one-time inconsistent thing, is about as far away as possible as you want from a competitive standpoint, right? Often in competitive games, you really want reproducibility, and then things that happen consistently time and time again. So reliability is 2 things there, so which just doesn't have anything of. Now, we've got hyper adaptations, which is kind of the adaptive trait that they have reworked for Tyranids. Now, I think I haven't seen in here anywhere yet, but it doesn't sound like there are like High Fleet, Jormungandr, Behemoth, or Leviathan or Kraken anymore, because previously you would select one of those and then select a combination of one of those adaptations previously. Now, when we look at it, it's just 3, and those 3 are. It says this, so at the start of the first battle round, so you get to select this kind of adaptatively. Select one of the following hyper adaptations to be active for Tyranid units for your army. So we've got one here, Swarming Instincts, so whenever you make an attack that targets an infantry or swarm unit, you get sustained hits 1, which I believe is Exploding Sixes for old man's talk. And that's whenever you make an attack, so should be ranged or melee, and you get that for the entire until the end of the battle, which is really good. And then we've got Hyper Aggression. Each time you make an attack against a monster or vehicle, you get lethal hits. Now I'm going to look up in the
6 to hit automatically won't.
There you go, which is great too, because that's exactly what you would want against monsters or vehicles. Hive Predators. Each time make an attack against a character, critical hit is scored, so a 6 to hit. That attack has the precision ability. So I guess you would roll your hits, look for the 6s, and then keep them aside, and then roll them to wound separately as well. That's pretty good. I don't think the character one's very relevant, right? But hyper aggression against the right archetype, against monsters or vehicles, against knights, for example, just auto 6s to wound. That's pretty solid.
It's strong, yeah. When I looked at those 3, I found that the Hive Predator, the character snappy one, was the one that appealed to me the most, because you can use it for shooting too, and you could potentially kill some characters. But I mean, as well, Swarming Instincts, Exploding Sixes against infantry. if you face orcs or necrons or something with a lot of infantry, it's better than plus on the hit, and
Yeah.
army 1 plus on the hit is excellent. But these all just seem useful, but they may be more difficult if you're facing a mixed army, I think.
Yeah. Although I do like the fact that you can basically look at your opponent's army and be like, do I want exploding sixes or do I want auto hits, auto wound on sixes? Sweet. So that's like a straight damage and buff. So if we were just talking about inconsistency with Shadow in the Warp, we've got something super consistent there, which is nice.
Absolutely,
now, a lot of armies are defined in their strength by the stratagems which they get. Now, we've seen some stratagems. We've seen the Eldari stratagems, we've seen the guard stratagems. And so we've got a reasonably good idea of what to expect in terms of their power level. However, I think just to preface to this, there are datasheets down below which have the ability to make stratagems cost 0. And the Swarmlord, for example, gives you a CP, an additional CP every single battle round, I think, or on your turn. So you can only get 1 per turn. So something costing 2 CP is not out of this world. And Tyranids do later on have a character which enables them to target a unit, and then that unit has a 0 CP strat whenever you want to use it. So that's quite good. Do you want to run through the first stratagems and we'll alternate?
Absolutely. The first one would be Rapid Regeneration. 5 up, feel no pain for 1 unit if you're within synapse when you're being shot or fought.
Yep.
Exactly what the Iron Hands have currently, and it's just useful, simply useful.
And so you can get a 6 up if you're not within Synapse, but there's also characters that enable 2 units to be within Synapse permanently for that turn. So, likely it's going to be a 5 up. And this stratagem was absolutely awful for a long time. It used to be 2 CP regain D3 wounds in the 8th edition codex, I think. And then it was 1 CP regain D3, I think. I used it once or twice on a harpy to get +1 to hit effectively. But now this is really powerful. 1 CP. And you can use it on any unit you want, right? So maybe if you've got a unit of like Carnifexes or 20 Hormigons, for example, or 20 Termagants, 5 up Feel No Pain that's actually pretty sick for 1 CP.
Absolutely. My thinking goes back to the old Leviathan warrior spam, and you'd have 1 unit in front, and then you'd use this. I mean, you used to be able to just cast a spell, and it would be for a whole round, but now you have to use it in the shooting phase and then again in the fight phase.
Yeah.
Which is, interesting. Yeah.
But it's a bit more reactive, right? So you can see where they split. People can't just target the unit that doesn't have Catalyst on it. I'll go left to right here. We've got Adrenal Surge. So in the fight phase, up to 2 Tyranid units from your army that are within Synapse range. So once again, we said you can make 2 units within Synapse range with a character and are eligible to fight, or 1 other Tyranid unit from your army that is eligible to fight. So I guess they could have just said up to 2 units. I think that would have covered that one. Until the end of that phase, until the end of the phase, each time a model is selected to make an attack, a successful unmodified hit roll of 5+ scores a critical hit. Now, a critical hit means that it goes on to be a critical 6 to wound, right? If I'm unmistaken.
So critical hit would be 6 to hit. So if I am reading this correctly, if you would use this on a unit that is using the swarming instinct, you would have exploding 6s on 5 ups. If you're going against the vehicles, you would auto wound on 5 ups. Or if you are going against a character with a high predator, you would be being able to snipe on a 5 up, which is just very useful with that ability. But this is all in combat.
Yeah. So well said though, because that synergizes directly with your hyper adaptation. So that's actually quite good. It's a lot better than what I thought. Now that you mentioned the hyper adaptations, but it is only in the shooting. It is only in the fighting phase. So you're probably looking at the monster of vehicles or swarming instincts one there. But you know what? Honestly, 5s explode. It's quite powerful, and if you can get 2 units out of it, which is not always a given, right? Sometimes you're going to be like 2 CP for 1 unit. Yeah, but if you get 2 units, it's effectively 1 CP for 5 up, exploding 6s or auto wound on 5s. So that's not bad. It's a damage amplifier. Let's go through the next one. You got Death Frenzy.
Oh yeah. So this is basically 1 unit that's been targeted by attacks. They get fight on. Yeah, in the fight phase. Sorry, they get fight on death on a 4-up, which is dramatically strong. So just how this is worded, I think it's very important compared to how the world leaders work currently.
Mm-hmm.
Let's say you have an enemy unit that is going against Tyranids. What you would want to do, you would want to split your attacks half into one unit, half into the other. So only half of the damage you deal they would be able to fight back. So you definitely want to split if you're fighting against Tyranids. But if it's one unit on one unit, you would get to fight back on death on a 4-up, which is extremely strong. And
Yeah.
I look at this combined with Adrenal Surge and the Exploding Sixes, and it's pushing me towards the fight phase again and again with Tyranids.
Yeah, and so just the way the stratagem works, guys, is when you're targeted for the fight phase, you use the stratagem for 1 CP, so very cheap. And then whenever one of your models dies, on a 4-up it fights. So this stratagem is actually very, very powerful. And this completely depends on how prevalent melee is in 10th edition. But this makes it extremely hard for your opponent to decide where to go first on their attack sequence, because you might use it on this unit, you might use it on that unit. It's so the ball's in your court on this one. So actually, for a 1 CP strat, I think a lot of armies would love to have this one. Very powerful.
Very
I think
strong.
definitely better than Adrenal Surge. Probably not as good as Rapid Regen, because Rapid Regen is just flat value.
Interesting, yeah. Adrenal Surge is my favorite so far, even
Really?
with the 2 CP. Yeah, I think so. It's gonna be Well, we'll see. Yeah.
Yeah. Overrun. Now, this has been a notorious stratagem for a long time, and I've overrun once or twice in my lifetime. But I think they've kind of hit the nail on the head on this version of it. It's still 1 CP. Now, use it in the fight phase before a Tyranid unit from your army consolidates. Now, I'm going to read it verbatim here. Until the end of the phase, each time a model in your unit makes a consolidation move, it can move up to 6 inches instead of 3. Okay, that's good. Provided your unit can end its consolidation move in unit coherency and with an engagement range of 1 or more enemy units. Now, there's a full stop there. So, okay, I'll keep going and come back to it. If your unit is within synapse range of your army and not within engagement range of any enemy units, instead of making that consolidation move, it can instead make a normal move up to 6 inches. So, the way that I read this, and I think this is probably just a side note, is that some of these abilities and conditions are worded quite bizarrely. I would have really appreciated just a couple of bullet points to note the conditions that you can use this under. But the way that I read it is it can make a normal move up to 6 inches. It can move up to 6 inches, provided unit can end its consolidation move in unit coherency and with an engagement range of 1 or more enemy units. So if there are 1 or more enemy units that you can consolidate into, you can move up to 6 inches into that unit. Then, if you're within the synapse range, you can then make a normal move of 6 inches instead. So, what I think will happen with this one is that you'll probably put synapse on a unit, it'll go and kill something, and then you can make a 6-inch normal move in any direction you want instead. So, did I get it right?
Unfortunately, it says instead of making that consolidation move, so you have to pick one or the other.
Yes, of course, yeah. But you can effectively make a move instead of consolidation move if you're within synapse, right?
Yes, which is just so strong, honestly. I remember going back to 9th then, and I was always trying to use a harpy and overrun a harpy 40 inches. I was never able to quite get it. I got close, but I just did not pull it off. But 6 inches in any direction is useful, but this is maybe once a game situational. But I was interested if this was going to be 6-inch pylon and consolidate, because if you have both of those things, you would be able to go dramatically far and plow onto markers. And I remember Heidar playing his 80 demonettes, throwing that CPP on, just plowing a unit of demonettes 15 inches or something by charging and then 6 and 6, But I think an important thing, even if you're not the synapse, you could basically just go 6 inches.
Yeah, provided you are within unit coherency and within engaged range of 1 or more enemy units, can end its consolidation. So if you're not in synapse, you have to end your consolidation with an engagement range of an enemy unit. Or if you are within synapse, you can move in 6 inches in any direction. So interesting. I think they've hit. I think they've done this one good. It's obviously a nerf overall from its heyday, but a lot of this stuff kind of moves 6 inches anyway, so that's not too bad anyway. Synaptic Insight. What do you think about this one?
Oh yeah, in your command phase, you can pick 2 units that are within synapse range and get an additional hyper adaptation. So let's say you pick the exploding sixes against infantry, but here's a rhino. I could get exploding sixes against that, or auto wound on sixes against that rhino, which is very helpful. But I guess you can't double up and get the same one twice.
Yeah.
So this seems just kind of mediocre to me.
Really?
If you're facing mixed armies, you could, I mean, because you would ideally be picking the best one already, but maybe you would also want to do something against the other one. But it depends on how mixed the armies are. But if you're facing a very mixed army, you could get use out of this.
I think where this is going to be really useful. So there's a couple of things to this one. You select up to 2 Tyranid units from your army. So up to 2 is great. But where I think this is going to be mostly used is you're going to use it for that character precision one. So you might be against a mixed army, and then all of a sudden your opponent leaves a unit that they have an attached unit, which is a leader plus a bodyguard that you can charge. And then you go, I'm going to pay 1 CP, make both of these units have precision on critical hits, is it? And then you get exploding sixes to hit, or you could use the adrenal surge as well to 5s become exploding sixes that also, I guess, get precision. So that seems pretty good. I think that's probably the most use case. But 1 CP for up to 2 units can be able to do that. I think it's appropriately costed. It would be lame if that one was 2 CP, right? Because then you might not use it as much because you might be just targeting 1 unit all the time.
I think so, yeah. My thinking with that scenario is, let's say you're attacking a unit, and you have 2 full units that are attacking a unit with a character. My thinking is they may be able to just plow through the unit and the character without being able to snipe.
Yeah.
But who knows? But this, I think you hit it right on the head. That if you're going to be using this one, it's probably going to be for the character sniping one.
Yeah. So nice and flexible, though. I quite like that. You got to respect it. Now we've got this stratagem got a lot better as well. I love this one. In the swarm, your command phase, so you use it any point in your command phase, up to 2 in this multitude units from your army within synapse range from your army, and 1 other in this multitude unit from your army. Oh, wow, that's really good. Sorry, I didn't realize that. So up to 2 in this multitude units from your army that are within synapse range of your army. Okay, yeah. Once again, I feel like just some bullet points could have been a bit better here. Other in this multitude unit from your army. Okay, so you can pick 2 within synapse range or 1 not within synapse range. Up to D3 plus 3 destroyed models are returned to each of those units. Now, I know that Termagants, Hormagaunts, and there's one other data sheet.
Gargoyles, maybe?
Gargoyles, I believe. Yeah, the same as it is now, can all be replaced here. So this got a lot better, actually. So it used to just be one unit, and this is just a flat buff because it's the same D3 plus 3 models, but all of a sudden you can potentially use it on 2. So pretty sweet. And now that morale has changed, where you don't necessarily lose models like that, well, I guess morale doesn't actually exist as much anymore. This is potentially a lot better because you can get left with 1 or 2 units, models in a unit, a lot more often.
Absolutely. My thinking with this is how it will come down to if you can conga line. And for those who don't know, the discussion is, let's say you get back 5 models. Do they all have to be within coherency of existing models, or could you place 2 out of the 5 and then the other 3 within coherency of the 2 you already placed? So could you string out the unit, or would each model have to be within coherency with the unit existing currently?
Who knows? I think we're probably going to have to see a designer's commentary on that one soon, or an FAQ about replacing reanimated units. Maybe it's covered in the Necron one, but some clarification on that would be good. But I know that's been pretty inconsistent among tournaments as well, even for 9th edition, how you can actually replace those units, right?
But my thinking with this is it goes very similar to GSE currently. Instead of cold resing back models, you could string 20-man gaunt units onto 2 markers. If they're attacked on the one end, you could pick from the other, res back all the way around. So you could potentially hold 2 markers, even though a lot of the gaunts are killed. I mean, you're getting 10 models for 1 CP, which is just good value, I think.
Yeah, that's pretty sick. 10 models, 1 CP? Sign me up. Alrighty. Now we've got enhancements. Now, if I'm not mistaken, enhancements are more or less warlord traits from the previous edition. Now we've did some looking beforehand, and on the GT pack, well, I don't know if it's called a GT pack. I think it's just called a games pack or something. We've confirmed that you can take up to 3 enhancements. Now, this is from the quick start guide on step, I believe it's called step 5 or something. Give me 1 second. Jokull, you can look it up while
Yes. Step 5 select units in
there
the
we go.
corners.
You can select up to 3 enhancements. So that's how we're going to assume that this is going to work for matched play as well. Now, I'll run through these really quick because a lot of them are very similar. We've got Alien Cunning, which has actually changed. It's the same name, but now this is just straight up redeploy 3 units. Tyranids haven't really had a redeploy for a while. They had it in Crusher, but now we've got it again. And redeploy is absolutely massive. For those, I won't go into too much analysis. I can ahead of myself. We've got Synaptic Linchpin, which is Tyranids model only. While the friendly Tyranids unit are within 9 inches of the bearer, that unit is within synapse range of your army. Okay, so 9 inches instead of 6. Perfectly adapted. You can re-roll 1 hit, wound, damage, advanced charge, or saving throw. So you can't reroll 1 of each, but it's just 1 of those per turn, though. So a little bit of a buff there. Adaptive biology, you get a 5-up feel no pain, and if you've lost any wounds, you get a 4-up feel no pain. So just to clarify the wording on this, at the start of any turn, if the bearer has few or more starting wounds, then you get the 4-up feel no pain. So you can't take a wound and then midway through the shooting activation get a 4-up feel no pain. What are your you get to pick 3 out of the 4, Jokull. Which are the 3 that you're picking here?
So it looks to me like you always want to be within synapse with all your things, just how this works. I wonder how good the synapse units are, if that's going to be a tax. The one that strikes me the first is just the 4-up feel no pain if you've taken any wounds. That seems very strong to me.
Okay.
I think one thing that I look at is the Alien Cunning. It says after both players have deployed their armies, not at the beginning of the battle. So how I read this, it reads the same as the Phobos Space Marine War trait, which a lot of people play like you know who goes first, but actually you have to redeploy before you know who goes first. The good thing you can go into strategic reserves, but I just wonder if it's before you know who goes first, how much you're going to be getting out of this, because you don't know who goes first. You don't really have dramatically more information than when you're deploying the units already. So unless that's that way, I would just pick the other 3.
You keep going through. I'm going to look up the Leontis spoiler because I know there's another redeploy here. So I'm going to check the wording on both of them so we can get some good information.
Oh yeah, and the perfectly adapted one, hit, wound, damage, advance, charge, or saving throw. What stands out to me there is the charge roll. Being able to just reroll that charge roll should often save your CP. I'm not a fan of going for risky charges, but with a reroll to the charge, you can be more selective with that. Now, 9 inches synapse. It seems to me that, especially with a big model, like you would be able to get 100% more area with a 9 inch compared to a 6 inch. My math is probably not right there, but close to 100%. So you double the space, I think.
Yeah, the total area that you encompass of the circle. Yes. So I'll just butt in. The Leontis redeploy is worded the same way. Now, I guess we don't really know, but as rules is written, you are technically correct that after both players deploy their army, you don't actually know who goes first. So if it's a redeploy before you know who goes first, then functionally, basically does nothing. If it's a redeploy after you know who goes first, one of the best warlord traits in the game. That's just the way that works, in my opinion. So, I mean, hopefully it's after you know who goes first, right? Because otherwise it's kind of bad.
I mean, I don't know of almost any faction that has an option to redeploy and doesn't take it consistently. The only one I could possibly think of is Custodes, and I think Custodes players just often make a mistake not taking their redeploy. But I mean, if it's before you know, then absolutely not. If not, then sign me up.
Yeah, and I think you're right. The Synaptic Linchpin one was, I thought, one that doesn't look that very good on paper, but actually is quite strong. 9 inches is a lot better than 6, and you're going to be stringing into synapse for a lot of your stuff by the looks of it. So that's true. The adaptive biology is just straight up great, and there's some big boys that you can put it on too, which is fantastic. And
Like,
perfectly adapted is good too because you can re-roll a charge roll in your turn and then perhaps re-roll a save throw in your opponent's turn. So you're probably using that twice in a battle round consistently.
like one point I wanna mention here is that with the adaptive biology, how the math works on this is uh, if you get a 4 or feel no pain, it doesn't just count as having, okay, let's say a 16 wound model would effectively have 24 uh, because you have, let's say, 50% chance to survive, so you'd have 50% more wounds.
Mm-hmm.
The fact is, you would have additional wounds, then those would also have compounding interest. So let's say a 16-point model, 16 wound model would have close to 30 wounds with 4 of final pain.
Yep.
So doubling the more than doubling, like more than 100% could be, but it just, especially if you're taking in rerolls and saves, maybe from perfectly adapted,
Mm-hmm.
or a command reroll. If you couldn't take 2 on the same character, you could just be ridiculously tanky. And I remember, Dave, we had an idea for a -1 to hit, 5 of feel no pain Tervigon that ran
Yep.
through the middle of the board. I don't know if you remember that one.
I do remember that one. Very hard to kill. It was -1 to hit and no rerolls to hit as well. It was a warlord trait for one back in the day. Yeah, I think that's run's really good. And actually, the Turvigon is one of the models that I thought I was going to put that on actually. So let's get into it. Now they've separated some data sheets out. Jokull and I have looked through these, and there's some interesting design choices here. First of all, we got the big boy, who's probably the Terra for 9th edition. He was the reason Overrun got nerfed. And this is the Winged Hive Tyrant. Now, they've separated the data sheets out between the Winged Hive Tyrant and the Hive Tyrant, which I think is cool because they both do different things. I'll read through this one. He's got Deadly Demise 3, which means that he basically hits everything within 3 if you roll a 6 or pseudo explodes. Now, he's got ranged weapon and a melee weapon. You can either take the Heavy Venom Cannon or the Stranglethorn Cannon. The Heavy Venom Cannon is strength 9 -2 flat 3. The Stranglethorn Cannon and Blast D3 shots. The Stranglethorn is D6 shots, strength 7 -1 damage. Damage 2 though on that one, and Blast. So on paper, the Stranglethorn looks quite good. Then you've got the melee options. He's got Monstrous Lash Weapon Bone Sword, 6 attacks, 9 -3 flat 3, twin linked. Nice. Monstrous Scything Talons. You've got 4 attacks there. Strength 7 -2 damage 2. Now this has got the extra attacks keyword on it. Do you know how many extra attacks this gets by chance, Jokull?
Oh yeah, so I have it up here. So you can attack with this weapon in addition to any other weapons it can make attacks with. So generally you're only supposed to be able to use 1, but this says you can use this in addition to other things. So it's kind of like the Malefic type of thing. So essentially you could then both make the 5 attacks with the Tyrant Talons, while also making 4 attacks with the Scything Talons. So effectively you'd be getting 9 attacks in total.
Exactly. So you basically get 9 attacks at damage 2, or you get 6 attacks at damage 3 twin linked. Now, I guess it depends on which way the meta comes up. There's a lot of Space Marines, you'd probably take your 9 attacks. But
I think so, yeah.
He's got Synapse, obviously. He Deep Strikes, which you're probably never going to do. Well, you might do. Rapid Ingress, maybe. Now, he's got this ability's come up a lot in other data sheets. He's got once per turn, so per turn, not better around. One friendly Tyranids unit within 12 inches of one or more models with this ability, so one unit within 12 inches of him for the time being, can be targeted with a stratagem for 0 CP, even if another unit from your army has already been targeted for that stratagem this phase. So at the bare minimum, he gets a free command point reroll. At the bare minimum, because you're going to be taking a save somewhere, right? So that's quite good. But notably, Heroic Intervention is 2 CP now, so, can do that for 0 CP. Or you could do some of the strats that we mentioned just before. You might want to make Adrenal Surge, for example, right? 2 CP, boom, done. Overrun, maybe. You got Rapid Regeneration, so just 5 up, feel no pain him. So that, I think, is a really powerful ability.
What I am very interested in is how this is worded. It says that one friendly unit. So one friendly unit with 1 or more models, can be targeted with a stratagem. What about stratagems that target 2 units?
Yes,
I guess
which is why
those
it
wouldn't be
says
included. Yeah, yeah.
no. Well, this is why it says critically up to 2 Tyranid units from your army. So in Magic the
Mhm.
Gathering, up to would typically denote you can select 0, 1, or 2 units for as the precondition for that. So
So you could theoretically, but then you couldn't pick the second unit, I guess.
exactly
Is
right.
that
Yeah, yeah.
okay?
I take it that's probably the intent. Now he's got a psychic ability, quote unquote psychic ability, paroxysm. At the start of the fight phase, it has paroxysm and then psychic in the in brackets here. You can select up to one enemy unit within 12 inches and visible to this model. Roll a d6 on a 1, you take d3 mortal wounds. Great. On a 2 up, subtract 1 from the attack characteristics of weapons equipped by that models in that unit. This is okay. This actually is a lot worse than what paroxysm used to be. And what I will note is just covering off this data sheet that he doesn't actually have any psychic ranged attacks. So the Winged Hive Tyrant, psychic output, kind of in the bin now. And in fact, if you consider how good he was with the Reaper of Obliterax in terms of his melee damage, nowhere near as heavy hitting in melee. And then in addition to that, he can't join the Tyranid, the Tyrant Guard unit. So he just
Hmm.
operates in and of himself. Now he does have
Hmm.
fly, but he is a monster. So he moves 12, but the new fly rules are going to move around terrain. So actually getting this guy into combat is going to be tough. He's T9 with a 4 up and vulnerable save, but he's actually lost 2 wounds. He's wounds 10. So I think overall the Flyrant probably a loser for this edition, wouldn't you say?
I think so. I am quite stoked on paroxysm. I
Yeah.
think -1 attack is strong. But
Mm-hmm.
but I mean, he used to be so much better, absolutely, and unkillable and bouncing back and forth. I think this is something I would look at with a rapid ingress.
Yeah.
Take him down, attack a key thing. But on the other hand, you could also just walk some warriors, I wonder,
Yeah.
onto the thing and just run forward. My
If
go-to, I think, would be kind of but still, like if you look at the monster's bone sword, strength 9 only. It's
yeah.
not it's not dramatic. Like
Yep.
you're not facing like an amateur has toughness 10.
Yeah. You're wounding on
Wounding on
fives.
fives. Yeah,
Yeah. And it's only AP2. In addition, I just realized he's only movement 12 as well.
yeah,
And
it's
used to be 16. And given the fly rule change, he probably has about a third of the movement he previously did, right? And that's a lot less.
I think yeah, this is a unit that would maybe be 150 points at the best, but I think
Yeah.
one free CP per turn, not per round, is good. I think
Yeah.
that's the key thing. So you could be getting 8 CP from this guy theoretically, but you don't have to use it on close by units, and he could just be shot.
Yep.
And my worry is he would just be shot.
Yep. And so let's go on to the walking version, who moves
Hmm.
8. The walking version's got a 2-up base save, which is nice,
Hmm.
because 2-up saves are harder to get to now. He's got the same Will of the High Mind, so you can target units within for 0 CP on just use the strats. But he's got his Psychic Aura, in my opinion, is way better. It's Onslaught, so they've made Onslaught a Psychic Aura now, but it doesn't
Hmm.
actually say that you have to actually cast this one. So
Yeah.
it actually just says Onslaught or a Psychic while friendly Tyranid units are within 6 inches of this model. Ranged weapons equipped by those models have the Assault ability. So this is not locked to Tyranid infantry models, by the way.
Hmm.
So your Exocrine, your Tyranofex, something like that, can also get assault weapons, which means that they can advance and shoot, and there's no advance and shoot penalty now. So that's pretty sick, including
Yeah.
himself too.
Yeah, I mean it's pretty cool ability. I think one thing that I'm happy about is this is a psyker, which
Mhm.
doesn't have psychic in the melee or ranged part of his thing.
Yeah,
Um, I mean, I just hope he's cheap. I really just
yeah.
hope that he's gonna be cheap.
He's
Toughness
got
10 is good. That's something.
he's got a 4-up and vulnerable save, and you can either run a melee ranged hybrid, or you can run just a double melee. And the double melee looks pretty good. You're going to get 6 attacks with your monstrous bone sword and lash whip at the same profile. Then you're
Mhm.
also going to equip him with monstrous scything talons, so
Mhm.
he gets a total of 10 attacks in combat. So that's pretty sick. And I'm just going to say on another side note, the Walkrint with the lash whip and bone sword and the 2 talons looks really sweet in real life too. So I'm going to be happy with that. But he's got a big advantage. He can be accompanied by Tyrant Guard. Now, we're not going to go to Tyrant Guard just yet, but Tyrant Guard are pretty similar in their loadouts to the previous edition. So, bring them with some Tyrant Guard, pretty sweet. Tyrant Guard do have infantry keywords, so they can help him get into combat, and he's going to be pretty tough to kill through Tyrant Guard as well.
Absolutely, yeah.
What I would say, so just a heads up, Onslaught is limited to the model, so even if you include Tyrant Guard, you can't make it Onslaught a unit aura. Obviously, something I looked at straight away to break. Then we've got the Swarm Lord as well. Now, the Swarm Lord has the same stat line as the Walking Hive Tyrant, so he moves 8, toughness 10, 2 up save, 4 up invulnerable. Now, this is the big boy. This is the leader. All right. So, first up, he gives you something which I think is really good. Gives you an additional CP in your command phase. That's great. I don't know how many armies are going to have access to this, but an additional CP is very good considering a lot of the stratagems, a lot of things that were free now cost stuff like, rapid ingress is really good to use or spam. Heroic intervention is really good, and then you've got 5 up feel no pain, which you can just spam every time as well you get targeted.
It stacks with the Hive Tyrant on top of that, so it's
Yes, exactly. So you could also use that and then the Will of the High Mind to actually reduce your stratagem cost as well. So actually, Tyranids could potentially spam a lot. Then he's actually got Malign Presence, which is Vect, which is Old Vect, where you make your opponent's stratagem cost 1 more CP. This is quite good. Particularly might be relevant against Overwatch, where if your opponent overwatches you once, you might make that cost 2 CP. And actually, 2 CP for some armies to Overwatch is probably going to be far too much. For reference, guys. Sorry, go
on. I see nothing against using this on command reroll at the moment. I don't know.
Oh, yeah. But I guess a lot of the armies might not have as much CP as Tyranids, so using on command reroll might not be as impactful. Whereas Overwatch is something that's going to directly hit your army's ability to stay on the board. But he's also got 9-inch Synapse baseline included too. That's pretty sweet. Yeah. And in addition to that, he can take Tyrant Guard as his bodyguard, so it's going to be harder to kill him. His melee profile is good, finally. He hits on 2s, great. And then he's got Strength 9, -2, flat 3, 8 attacks, full rerolls to wound. So a lot better than the Swarm Lord of old, who was, let's be honest, you rolled 6 attacks or whatever, how many you had. You rolled 2 1s, then, you failed 3 times, and then they, did something, and you're like, that great, it's 240 points. That's great. But in addition to that, he's got a Psychic Flamer, which actually is quite good. It's D6 plus 3 attacks, so you're going to be averaging 6 attacks. It automatically hits. Strength 5, -1, damage 2. So actually, the Swarmy is, when you consider the ranged output of the Swarmy versus the Hive Tyrant, if you consider both those, he probably does more in ranged and more in melee all up, right?
So, David, if I had to ask you now, if they all cost the same amount of points, how would you rank them in terms of strength?
I'm taking the Swarm Lord every day, I think. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I think the Swarm Lord, then the Walker, and then the Flyer. And how about yourself?
Absolutely the same, yeah. I think the Swarm Lord by far. I think my thinking is, let's say you make something more expensive. You're facing Deanster Occult that want to come within 3 of you, Phantasm for Eldar, who knows? But like with the limited amount of CP that you have, like let's say you face Eldar and they're going to use Phantasm. They can do nothing else if they're doing that,
Yeah,
which
true.
is dramatic.
Or Overwatch as well. They want to Overwatch you with support platforms and then automatically 6. They can't do that more than a couple of times. So yeah, really cool. I think I would probably even pay 50 points premium to run the Swarm Lord because actually his ranged output is actually good now. So that's really good. And the additional CP return is really massive. So he chunky. He good. Yay, Swarm Lord. Potentially good. Potentially good again. But once again, guys, it's difficult to compare these data sheets because we haven't seen anything else yet. But I think the next one is actually super good. So I'm going to stop talking for a bit and you can run through the one of my favorite models, actually.
The B-Boy, Brood Lord, the big one. So he has Scout 8, Movement 8, Toughness 5. He has a 4-up invulnerable save, 6 wounds, and objective secured 1.
Now, what does Scout 8 mean?
He can basically move 8 inches before the game begins, which I think is just very helpful since he already moves 8. Now, One thing he does not have, which I guess the Patriarch in Jokull used to have, he does not have Advance and Charge, which is something you would want. So he has 5 attacks, hits on 2s, Strength 6, AP 2, Damage 2, Twin Linked, 6s to wound, are an Immortal Wound in addition, Devastating Wounds, which I think is a very, very, very strong ability. He also gives any unit that he...
I will jump in. Devastating Wounds is naturally 6s to wound, convert your damage into mortal wounds.
Oh my god!
Yeah,
that's even better. Oh my god! Yeah.
Devastating Wounds is pretty sick. So it doesn't matter if he's going into a tank or if he's going into infantry. You're probably fishing for a lot of rerolls there.
He gives that also to any unit that he joins. Now,
nice. Who can he join?
He can do basically only join Genestealers, but I assume that they'll also have that scalp move. So he has Hypnotic Gaze, a psychic ability, goes off automatically in the fight phase, and one unit has -1 to hit. Which I think is just quite straightforward. So a straightforward combat character that buffs some Genestealers. Now let's hope the Genestealers are good. But from what I've seen so far in, I guess, the old HQ slot is I would not... I'm not super keen on anything so far. I think the Brute Lord is the one that I'm most excited about currently. But from the 9th edition context, I would be running a lot of MSU units and just bolstering that on. But you want something, I guess, for the free Warlord traits that you're getting anyway.
Yeah, but I do like if the redeploy is after you know who goes first. Potentially having that threat of redeploying the Broodlord and, say, 5 Genestealers to then go kill something, move basically 16 inches, then charge, and you could put the Adaptive Warlord trait for reroll charge on him. Doing that and then overrunning back is pretty sweet. It's a nice threat to have. Absolutely. But it depends on how good Genestealers are. But we already know that they've been spoiled to have 2 wounds, which is, at a minimum, that's exactly what you want. Now we've got a new model, the Winged Tyranid Prime. This guy... so the Brute Lord is infantry as well. Very important. The Winged Tyranid Prime is infantry fly, so that's the combination you want nowadays, because just fly is kind of functionally useless.
Oh, yeah.
But he is infantry fly, and he moves 12. So that's pretty fast. He's got Shadow on the Warp, he's got Synapse, and then whenever he joins a unit, you get Sustained Hits 1 ability. So...
Exploding 6s.
Exploding 6s. Now, I don't really know how this works, but if you have Sustained Hits 1 when you join a unit, and then you also select Sustained Hits 1 from your adaptive trait against infantry, you get double Exploding 6s, I'm going to assume, right? That would kind of make sense.
I would think not.
Really?
I would have thought not, but who knows? Yeah, it's hard to see, because there is a Sustained Hits 2 ability.
Yeah. You don't know if they're additive, to be fair. And usually those abilities are not additive, right?
Yeah, I mean, it could go either way. It would be excellent if it would go either way. But I guess, yeah. So he can join Gargoyles, Tyranid warriors with melee, or ranged weapons.
Yeah, exactly. And he's got 6 attacks. His profile's okay. 6 attacks, strength 6, -1 damage 2. And then on a 4-up, he actually fights on death. So, I mean, he's okay. I wouldn't expect this guy to be more than 75, 80 points at best, I think.
It has to be the cheapest one, right?
Yeah, and typically the Tyranid Prime. So there's no normal Tyranid Prime, as there used to be. So probably for model range reasons, they've differentiated those two, because the Tyranid Prime didn't really have that different of a model. But, hey, you can make him join Gargoyles. They both move 12 at that point, and you get Exploding 6s, and... he's okay. He provides Synapse. He's not the haymaker I think you're after. And there's no really good Warlord trait that really just sticks out to put on him, I don't think, because he's so cheap.
He has Fight on Death on a 4-up, but it's only a 4-up. What I think kind of differentiates him between the other characters is the real wound that he doesn't have. So Strength 6, AP 1. A lot of things have Deafness 8, 9, 10, 12. And then he will functionally be useless, I think.
I think, actually, this may sound weird, but Strength 6 -1 damage to its 6 attacks is almost the worst profile you're going to want to get, because you would rather have it be damage 1 and have, 8 or 9 attacks, right? Because then at least he's got a roll. It's like, okay, cool, I can plow through a bunch of this, or, I've got him plus some gargoyles. But having said that, he can be a bit of a slingshot to get your warriors into combat a bit more because warriors don't actually move as far nowadays. So,
Yeah,
potentially with the
yeah.
coherency rule, you can make a charge a bit easier. Maybe as the game progresses, we might see that come up. But he's the cheap HQ option.
Yeah.
Onto the big chunky boy. This guy is, by the way, he's pretty tough. We got the Turvagon. And I think the Turvagon is quite good. Although it totally depends on how devastating the shooting is in the game, to be honest with you, as most of the time is with these monsters. Toughness 11, which is a good breakpoint, so I think Melter wounds him on 5s. 2-up base save. Objective secured 5, so that's quite reasonable as well. So he can actually hold objectives against other small obstacle models. Now, he does the classic thing where you can select a Termagant unit in your command phase. Within 6 inches of this model, return up to D3+3 models. So I believe that you could probably use the Endless Multitude stratagem to get a unit within 6 inches of him, and then use this ability because you're now within 6 inches to return those models again, which is, interesting. And then he's got the Brew Progenitor. While Termagants are within 6 inches of this model, ranged weapons have the lethal hits ability, which, if I'm also mistaken, is 6 to hit auto wound as well.
Exactly, yeah. If they wanted this not to stack, they could so easily just put this into the rule that you get Endless Multitude for free. But they didn't do that, so they put Spawn Termagants. So my thinking is, let's say you run 2 of these, bunch of gaunts, you could double rest them. If you're able to conquer line, that'll be ridiculously strong. But I'm assuming you can't.
Yeah, so she's also got no invulnerable save, but a 2-up base save. And because of the way that the rules are written right now, you're probably on an effective 1-up because basically your entire army is going to be in cover permanently. Yes, that includes monsters and vehicles, which probably benefited from the most. Got 8 attacks, and actually I think her ballistic skill got better actually. 8 shots, 24-inch range, strength 5, AP 0, damage 1. That's a fine profile. But her melee is actually quite good now. She's got the Massive Slithing Talons, which have a sweep attack, which are 8 attacks, strength 7, -1 damage 2. That's pretty sweet. I think that's probably the profile you're going to use most often. Otherwise, you've got 4 attacks at D6 damage with higher AP and higher strength there as well.
Yeah, you could also go for the Crushing Claws, strength 12, AP3, D6+1. That seems good to me at least.
Mm-hmm. You have to replace these Scything Talons with Crushing Claws, though. So the Scything Talons, the Crushing Claws are better into vehicles, for sure. But the Scything Talons give you the option to be good into both things. So, you could choose how you want to load your Turvagon out. But I think she is definitely prime for the 5-up Feel No Pain, 4-up Feel No Pain Warlord trait, because that seems, or enhancement as we now know them. That seems pretty sweet.
Oh, boy.
Old One Eye. Have you ever played him? Tell me about him.
So I have a running joke with Malte, one of the German boys, about this model costing 380 points. I don't know how expensive he was, but he was expensive. So the Old One Eye has movement 8, basically a Carnifex, toughness 9, 9 wounds, 2-up save, objective secured 3. Now he has 5-up Feel No Pain base. He can make a unit that he's leading reroll fully to hit, which is, I think, the big point of taking him. Now, at the start of either player's command phase, he regains D3 bust wounds. So doing that again and again and again, but he only has 9 wounds to begin with, and I guess you'd want him in a unit. But if we put him into a Carnifex unit, you could then be taking stuff like, if the thing isn't a dramatic threat, you could just take it on Old One Eye. He would then regen twice and have the 5-up Feel No Pain. So if you're not killing Old One Eye in one go, you would just be regaining it all back. And my thinking is, if it was something dramatically scary, you just plop off another Carnifex in the unit. If it's anything but, you just take it on Old One Eye and just regen and regen and regen and regen. So I quite like him if he's reasonably pointed. Now he either has 6 attacks, strength 14, AP 3, damage D6+1, or 12 attacks that are 6/1/1.
And notably, he's actually got a 2-up base save as well. So, Old One Eye, let's hope. Let's all rejoice together and just hope that Old One Eye has not got the stupidest points cost in the world, because this guy has been... I don't know what he's done wrong. I don't know. What has he done wrong to the people at Games Workshop? Because he has been so bad for so long.
Oh, boy, yeah. Let's see. But I think out of the current characters, I am most excited about him. I
Really,
think,
I think
yeah.
yeah, that's fair. That's fair. I can respect that because Carnifexes look pretty decent as well. So those are the are those the HQ slots? I guess if they haven't told us guys, but I'm assuming they're going to go HQ troops, fast attack, heavy support. By the way, this is done. But
Am I
there's something in there I thought would have been an HQ that's not in there though.
am I off on there being no force rock slots? Just you have to pick a character and some core units.
You're probably correct. Yeah.
But at least think to note you can only take one old one eye and you can only take one swarm brute. That
Yeah,
was
yeah.
those two being special characters, I guess.
They have the
Uh,
epic hero keyword, which also means I don't think they can take an enhancement as well.
Absolutely, yeah.
So old one eye. Hopefully
Yeah.
he's got maybe his second life, a second eye. We'll see if he comes back. He can join now. By the way, he can join a unit of Carnifexes, and the Carnifexes come in units of 1 to 2 now, as opposed to 1 to 3. So if they came 1 to 3, you'd be loving life even more.
Yeah.
But on to the boys. My boys, Tyranid Warriors, you can bet I got a lot of these models. They've swapped these up into ranged and melee Tyranid Warriors. Now, okay, yeah, I can kind of get this, but to be honest with you, I don't really understand why they have done this because I mean, yeah, sure. As we'll get onto it, I think there's a blatantly superior version to play here. Now,
Always
Tyranid
right.
Warriors. Yeah, they've got. It's the same rule. For every 3 models, one can have their Devourer replaced with the Barbed Strangler, one can have their Devourer replaced with Heavy Venom Cannon. So for every 3 models, you can have one Barbed Strangler, one Heavy Venom Cannon, and one Death Splitter, I suppose. Now, there is for every 1 to 3 to create a unit for the ranged one. You have one Tyranid Prime, as they call it, and then 2 warriors. So the Barb Strangler and the Venom Cannon are basically the same from the last edition.
Mhm.
Now, for the ranged orientation, you can either take the weapons as we discussed, and then they also have melee weapons, which are called bio weapons, which are, to be honest with you, a little bit unimaginative. They get 5 attacks, strength 5, -1, damage 1, at weapon skill 3+. Not bad, but they're no bone swords. But now, they have a pretty good ability. They can shoot, they can fall back, shoot, and charge. Just straight up. The ranged one can do that for some reason. Fall back, shoot, charge. They move 6 as before, toughness 5 as before, 4 up save as before, 3 wounds as before, and objective control 2. Now, that's the ranged version of them. Then we've got the melee version. Now, the melee version has no ranged weapon at all.
Mhm.
Their weapon that they come with has just 2 more attacks, so 6 attacks, strength 5, -2, damage 1. So it's got 2 more attacks, and then 1 more AP, and it's damage 1. So the full melee version has 1 damage as long as, just with the ranged version. So, that's a little bit underwhelming. Now, they have a different ability, and they have an ability which I guess you could probably argue is actually worse. Their ability is at the start of the fight phase. Each time this model in this unit makes a melee attack, you can reroll a hit roll of 1. You can choose that, or you can choose each time a saving throw is made for this model, you can reroll a saving throw of 1. Now, you can only do this in the fight phase. So, at the start of the fight phase, you choose: do you want to reroll 1s to hit, or do you want to reroll 1s to save? Like, when are you ever picking reroll 1s to save at the start of the fight phase? Am I missing something here, man?
I am just worried about them bringing back reroll saves. I remember in 4th and 5th, you would have
Eh,
Fortune, the Elder spell, full reroll hits on one unit. Thankfully, they don't have an invulnerable save, is all I'm going to say. But I
yeah.
think you always take the real ones to hit. I guess if you were being charged, you may just take the real ones to save. But that's I want to note though that I'm happy about the bioweapons because I'll have to do less hobby work, which is always good. Um,
It's true.
one point I had about the ranged ones is you will not be able to advance and shoot those. Am I correct?
But if you're within onslaught range, you will then
Of
have
the
an
hive tyrants.
assault. Yeah, you will then have an assault blast weapon.
Yeah,
Not
I think
bad.
that's yeah. I think they're functionally worse than before. But if you have the hive tyrant on there, but I can't see them being usable moving 6 and firing.
It's true, yeah. And we haven't seen an advance in charge stratagem or psychic power as we detailed above, so it's difficult. The thing with Tyranid Warriors, though, it always just depends on the points, doesn't it?
No.
If the points are cheap, then Warriors are going to be fantastic. I suspect that the points will not be cheap because they're still in the naughty corner. So we'll see. But I don't see why you would take the ranged one over the melee one, as far as I'm concerned. Foregoing ranged output and fallback shoot and charge for, I'm honest, if I'm being honest, reroll ones to hit or reroll a saving throw of 1 in combat is pretty bad. Like, someone's going to probably be putting you on 6-up saves if you're in combat anyway, because you're base 4-up save.
Yeah.
So, okay, sure. And then at that point, you're probably just going to pop the stratagem. If you've got the melee, the ranged ones, probably just pop the stratagem for 6s, 5 pluses auto wound at that point, wouldn't you?
I think so. And something you could look at, I guess, is the double hits on 6s, or potentially 5-ups. But these both just sadly seem a little bit bland to me.
I agree. Let's race through. I'm aware that we're probably going to be here for 3 hours if we continue at this rate. Termagants we have seen before. They are relatively similar. They've got a really sweet ability where if you move with a 9, or if an enemy unit normal moves, advances, or falls back within 9 inches of this unit, you can move up to D6 inches. Now, this sounds sweet on paper, but and I'm not, and it's good. Don't get me wrong, but you gotta roll like a 1 or a 2 sometimes. You're gonna be like, I moved 2 inches. You're like, great. I'm a little bit skeptical about the functional impact that that's gonna have. Hormagaunts, these are the only unit that have advance and charge, which, if I'm being honest with you, is, guess what? Hormagaunts are still strength 3. Yeah. Strength 3.
Oh boy. Yeah.
Weapon skill 4.
These just seem like they're meant to block. But I mean, 3 attacks is something. Let's say that you go. Okay, let's say that you are actually going to be facing knights. You have some Hormagaunts. They have 3 attacks each. You pop 5 plus auto wound against vehicles. You're doing a lot of AP1 damage.
That's true. And if you've got 25 up, it's 20 saves on average if you get 20 into combat. And they do move 10, and you can advance and charge. So they're actually not that bad. I think they're probably better than the current version, although that's not saying very much.
Yeah.
Again, on the small units, guys, it really depends on the points as well. The difference between a model being 6 points versus 7 points is potentially you running 20 or you running 120. Gargoyles stay relatively the same. They've got Deep Strike, but they've got a pretty sweet ability that after they shoot, they can make a normal move up to 6 inches. But you cannot declare a charge after that. So what you could do here is Deep Strike them, shoot, and then move 6 inches. And they are objective secured 2. So you could then come with a 9, and then if your opponent isn't screening out the whole objective, you could come in from Deep Strike, and then shoot, and then move 6 inches. And the reason you can do this is because in the core rules, now I might be wrong, in the core rules it says you can never move twice in the same phase. But this happens in the shooting phase. And it says in the shooting phase, you can move up to 6 inches after you shoot. So I do believe you could come down from Deep Strike, shoot, and then move 6 inches, but then not charge, right?
Could be, yeah. Interesting. I mean, I think, again, this just seems like a unit with very little damage. It goes fast. That is objective secured 2, and is meant to hold some objectives and kind of be in the way.
We haven't, and I think you raised a good point. We haven't seen anything that has a lot of damage yet, have we?
No.
And then we're going to get to a functionally unplayable model, the Toxicrene. We're not going to cover this model because it's got too much text, and the model is, as I said, functionally unplayable. So you're never going to see it on the tabletop. Good work, Games Workshop. The Tyrant Guard. The Tyrant Guard are pretty good. Now, these guys got a pretty big buff as far as I'm concerned, and you're probably going to be seeing them because they're going to be coming with the Swarmlord and the Walking Tyrant. Now, the Toughness 8, Move 6, have a 3-up save, so they used to have a 2-up save, did they? Or it was always 3-up?
I think, yeah.
Okay. They were quite tanky, though. Toughness 8, though, is a pretty sweet breakpoint at 4 wounds. Now, they get this thing called Guardian Organism. While a character model is leading this unit, the character has a Feel No Pain, 5-up Feel No Pain ability, which is pretty sweet. It just gives your Tyrant a 5-up Feel No Pain as long as he's got a Tyrant Guard. So, if they've got precision, or maybe they want to do some Aldari shenanigans to psychic him off the board directly, then you get to get your Feel No Pain for free, which is an ability that they didn't have previously. In addition to that, they've got probably their better profile is the Bone Cleaver, Lash Whip, and Rending Claws.
Oh yeah.
That's a lot. They've got Bone Cleaver, Lash Whip, and Rending Claws now. Previously, these were split out. You didn't know the joke.
Oh yeah, I'm just so happy that I have 6 of these ready to go because I think they'll be absolutely fantastic. This is the first, I guess, non-character unit that I am really excited about. I think this will be an excellent one. I think to note it's only objective controlling 1.
That's
so
true.
It's not that good with that, but I mean,
you could take them in
not
units
0.
And you could take them in units of 3 to 6 again too. So that's quite good. Right. On to the next big one. I've been talking for a bit. You can run us through the Neuro Tyrant and why you are going to auto-include one in every army you play.
You think so? I'm actually not excited about him. Interesting. Oh my god, yeah. So he has a movement of 6, toughness of 8. He's got a 4-up invuln, 9 wounds. Now he has a 2d6 psychic flamer that ignores cover. 5-1-2, 18-inch range. Damage 2 is nice though, with the flamer auto hitting. So in combat, he has 6 attacks, hitting on 3s, 5-0-1.
Not that good in combat.
Not that good in combat, absolutely. He can join the Neurogaunt or the Tyrant Guard. Joining the Tyrant Guard is excellent. Now, while this model is hitting a unit, it gets +1 to hit. If the target is battle shocked, it gets +1 to wound. Now, this seems good to me. Really, really good. Yeah. It's maybe not as good as the full reroll, but maybe even as good, if you get the +1 to wound as well. So Psychic Terror is a psychic ability that he has. So when you use Shadow the Warp ability, -1 to battle shock test for each enemy unit. Yep. So army-wide, -1 on that leadership test you do once per game.
Yep. Which is, depending on how important that is to your army, could be the difference maker, right?
Absolutely.
And we do know that 7 is basically the most common denominator there. So, if you might look at your opponent's army and think, or the meta, and think, actually, this might mean that I battle shock someone 30% more often, for example, right?
Absolutely. I mean, if you're doing Psychic in 9th edition, -2 to cast can be the difference maker between failing most of your casts versus making most of your casts. And I think this is very effective. Now, in the command phase, you can select up to 2 Tyranid units within 12. They're counted as being within synapse of your army, which is okay. You get more synapse.
But that's important for the stratagems, right? So those stratagems where, like Overrun, for example, right? You can send something away, it not be in synapse range, and then go kill something. And then if you had this ability on it, then you could actually count them as being within synapse range as well, right?
Yeah. I think there's nothing against this unit. I think he seems mediocre compared to the other tyrants. I think I would lean towards the Swarmlord still over him. But who knows with that? What do you think?
150, 165 points probably?
It could be.
Yeah. The Flamer does seem very good. And yeah, we'll have to say, I think the Synaptic Relays ability where you count 2 units as being in Synapse is probably going to be the make or break for him. Node Lash is quite good because in theory you could Node Lash, which is the when you're leading a unit, which you're probably going to lead it with the Tyrant Guard. You get +1 to hit, and then if you're battle shocked, you get +1 to wound as well. So gives you some options to unleash it aggressively in your command phase, and then potentially be in range to charge something, and then your Tyrant Guard get +1 to hit and wound. I think that's as good as it gets from him, right?
I think so. One thing that I look at is he only moves 6, and he can't advance and shoot. I think that's at least one thing to look at. But he'll be very good with Overwatch.
Yes. Yes. Oh, yeah. Really good with Overwatch, actually. 18 inches.
Yeah.
For sure. The Lictor. Now, this guy is probably the most improved model, I think, right? Out of any model out there. This guy he's got, like, a lot of keywords and a lot of very good ones. Moves 8. Now, Lictors come in units of 1 now. So, not units of 1 to 3 anymore. Moves 8. Toughness 6. Okay. 4-up save, but he's got 5-up invulnerable. So, 5-up invulnerable. 6 wounds. Objective secured 1. He's got 6 attacks. 7 -2. Flat 2. Hits on 2s, and he's got precision. Pretty sweet. We don't know how prevalent character's going to be, but his keywords are really good. He's got Fights First. Fights First is incredibly good in this edition for reasons that we'll probably go over in the next podcast. infiltrators, so he can forward deploy, lone operative, so you can't target him outside of 12, and stealth, so he's -1 to hit if you could target him. Stealth doesn't really mean that much here because, you have to be within 12 to target him anyway, and he moves 8 and then charges you, so probably not that much. Whenever he destroys an enemy character model, you get a CP, which is probably not relevant because you're probably going to gain the CP from the Swarm Lord anyway, so that first ability doesn't matter, but his other ability is really good. Once per battle round, you can target this model with the Rapid Ingress stratagem for 0 CP. So you get a free... He rapid ingresses... So he basically, if you don't know what that is, guys, he deep strikes or arrives from reserves in your opponent's movement phase for free. Now, that's going to be a pretty pivotal stratagem from what we can tell. And doing that for free is pretty nice too. But I think the big winners there are that he has fights first and he is lone operative as well. So very hard to engage with this guy proactively. And if you're a Lictor player controller, you get to use him quite easy. It's very easy to make stuff happen with, right?
Absolutely. I guess going into his big brother, the Death Leaper.
Yeah.
Death Leaper gets 1 extra attack.
Mm-hmm.
Also gets a CP if you kill a character. Now he has Fear of the Unseen, which used to be ridiculously strong ability, not being able to use stratagems onto a unit. But now if a unit is within 6 of the Death Leaper, they have -1 leadership. In addition, if in the battle shock step of your opponent's command phase, if such an enemy unit is below starting strength, it must take a battle shock test. So just if you're below starting strength, lost 1 model, you must take this test. So he seems good at snagging markers.
Yeah. So let me get something straight here. This is what you're telling me. You have your Neurotyrant, you have your Death Leaper, you infiltrate your Death Leaper, you advance him into your opponent's army, you then, on your opponent's turn, battle shock your entire opponent's army, hopefully at -2 because of the Death Leaper, and then you really hope that you can make something happen after that, maybe.
Yes. What's involved all of the dice to make it completely useless? But I mean, I think I would be looking at a simple Lictor. 1 Lictor seems good in Toonami, I think.
Yeah. Historically, the Death Leaper's been about twice the amount of points in a Lictor, so yeah. Now, on to the next guy. This guy was potentially one of the best models I've ever printed, and that came from potentially being the worst model ever printed. I might have been one of the few only players that played this guy before he actually got good. The Maleceptor. Moves 8, toughness 11, nice. 3 up save, but 4 up invulnerable again. 14 wounds, so he chunky. And he's got a nice psychic weapon. He's got D6 plus 3 attacks, blast. Ballistic skill 3, so I guess his psychic ability hits on 3s. Strength 10, -2, flat 3 damage, which is pretty sweet. And then actually his melee got better, thankfully, because his melee was awful before. His melee profile is got a sweep or a strike. You probably want to sweep. 6 attacks, hits on 3s, strength 7, -1, flat 2. He's quite good. And then in addition to that, he's got an aura ability, which I think is actually not that bad. While an enemy unit is within 6 inches of the Maleceptor, each time a model in that unit makes an attack, subtract 1 from the hit roll. If the enemy unit is below half strength, subtract 1 from the wound roll. So the Maleceptor is pretty hard to kill in combat because you're going to be -1 to hit him. And, he's also 14 wounds at a 4 up invulnerable save, T11. So pretty tough to get through him. We'll have to see whether his psychic ability, is very good, which is called Psychic Overload, of course, which was his old named ability as well.
I keep looking at these units and thinking, okay, this model can move 8 inches as a monster and fire and cannot advance and shoot. I think the advance and shoot ability will be very important, but this seems so clunky. Oh my god!
That's true. That's true. And there's nothing that gives you bonuses to advance, and from what we've seen, which is tough. Obviously, I guess the ranged weapon can become assault, right? With the onslaught aura, which I guess it seems the more that we read this, seems like an auto take, doesn't it?
Yeah, absolutely.
Because that seems critical. Pyrovores, let's have a quick read. In your shooting phase, after this unit is shot, select 1 enemy unit that's hit by it. That enemy unit cannot benefit from cover. Pyrovores, unless they're dirt cheap like they used to be, you're probably not going to play them. They are not fantastic. They have a flamer, 12-inch range, so maybe put them in strap reserves, right?
Hope they're cheap, but the melee is now worse than it used to be. Strength 5, AP 0, damage 1.
Yep.
That's demise 1 on theme, but not very interesting, I have to say. Yeah.
On theme. That would be the way to characterize those. The horror specs, I'm afraid, it's not looking
toughness,
much better.
toughness 11 is something, but yeah, I mean, yeah, it's slow, it's clunky, it's.
The Melicid is also toughness 11, so if these guys are pointed the same, you're taking the Melicid all day then, aren't you?
Yeah, 14 attacks, strength 7, AP 1, damage 2. With
Yep.
all of these reels, like, it's going around. It's just, do you need to take a Haruspex? So its ability is each time it fights, if one or more enemy units were destroyed by the attack, each enemy unit within 6 of this model must take a battle shock test. But
Is that
then,
important? You know?
then again, yeah, like becoming objective control to 0, it's okay. It's not, you're not losing models, you're not killing that much. Like,
It's cute, that's for sure.
it's cute, but I think I would want a ridiculous amount of attacks and just getting a lot done.
Yeah.
What I will note though is on the sorry to go back, but the Pyro Wars, like you could use the Pyro Wars to do anti-vehicle stuff with the auto wound 6s type of thing. I mean, that's something.
That's true. That's not bad. And in fact, it's ignore cover, twin linked. So actually, the flamer does reroll to wound. So not the worst. I don't know why the flamer is twin linked. Sure, I don't know. Yeah, great. Now we've got Venom Throats. We're actually very good in 9th edition. A key standout unit. And they've pretty much remained the same. 5 attacks each again, anti-infantry 2-up, so poison 2-up as they used to be. Give me one quick second. I'm just going to be letting someone in the door. So apologies, mid-podcast. This is life as we get it. You carry on for it.
Oh yeah, let's go for it. So -1 to hit, because they have the stealth keyword. 5 attacks, strength 3, AP 0, anti-infantry 2. So
Yes.
automatically wounding on 2-ups. This used to be a second unit for Dave, running 2 times 3 back in 9th. But now they give an aura that gives each Tyranid unit benefits of cover against an attack. If you are within 6 and you're not a monster, you get -1 to hit. So that is something. I think that on its own.
Yeah, you would have to hope so.
Unless you're running
they do seem quite good. They probably seem like an
ability,
auto include one
-1 to
of
hit.
as well. Do you want to keep going with the next
Seems
one as well?
useful.
I'm
I hope
trying
they're
to
cheap.
look up something. I thought the no, sorry, yeah, no, you go on. Sorry.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So it's Von Ryan's Leapers, one of the new units in the Leviathan box. 10-inch move, T5, 4-up save, 3 wounds. Now they have 6 attacks, hitting on 3s, strength 5, AP 1, damage 1. Fight first, infiltrators, -1 to hit in shooting. So it's essentially just the generic lictors. However, they come in units of 3 to 6. There are synapse, and you can target them for the heroic intervention stratagem for 0 CP, even if you already used that onto a different unit. 6 up invulnerable save. So faster warrior unit doesn't have AP2 though compared to the warriors, but gets fight first, infiltrators, and stealth. This seems something to me. I think if they're reasonably priced compared to the warriors, having synapse, being able to move 10, which seems a lot better than moving
I
6
think these
for a
guys
melee
are
unit.
probably the standout unit. Fight first is extremely powerful, and you can heroic free.
I'm excited about the
for
one
0
round
CP, which
myself.
typically costs 2 CP. These guys are a standout. I think they're probably going to be. You're going to be seeing them on the tabletop. They seem like one of the better, more efficient data sheets for anything that we've seen. Let's quickly skip through some things. Neurogaunts don't seem that good. We're going to have to see how important Synapse is, but yeah. Don't know why you would ever play those. But I might get found out here a bit. Zoanthropes are pretty similar to the way they were before.
Oh my god!
Then well, they project a 6-up invulnerable save for your entire army, so you're probably in the one of category here again. I will note that they got rid of the Neurothrope model as a standalone datasheet, and it's now a part of the unit composition. That's the sergeant, I believe. Although, go for it.
I have to say that this is the first shooting unit that I am interested in so far.
Mhm.
So they have 24-inch range. They can pick one of two profiles, either D3 attacks blast, hitting on
Mhm.
threes, strength 7, AP2, damage D3, or a single attack, strength
It's a
12,
good break point because a
AP3,
lot of the
damage
things that we just
D6
talked
plus
about as
1.
well are at toughness
Now,
11.
strength
So you'll be
12,
wounding on threes
AP3,
here, which
D6
is
plus
quite good.
1 seems like something to me at least.
Automatically wound. Mhm.
The only thing
Yep.
that, so they have lethal hits, so I guess that would be sixes to hit, automatically wound, if I'm not mistaken. Uh, the only thing I don't like about that is that this unit is not able to
Yeah.
uh,
Yep. For sure.
make great
They do
use
have something called.
the
They got
of
rid of
the
the
ability
regenerate
to
when you deal
auto wound
psychic
on
damage, and
sixes
instead of that, they
or
got
things like that in volume.
whenever your opponent
But
fails a battle shock test
because you
within
already
6
have the
inches
lethal
of this
hits,
unit,
yeah.
that enemy unit suffers D3 mortal wounds. So, I mean, do you just play 3 units of zone throws, yeet them at your opponent, try and battle shock their whole army with -2 leadership, and deal D3 mortal wounds to everything? Maybe. That's like the only good combo I've really seen here is that you can force battle
I
shock
mean,
test your
it's interesting.
opponent's
Yeah, it's
entire
interesting.
army, and
Absolutely.
then if you're within range of this unit, which is the zone throws, you know they can take D3 plus they can take D3 mortal wounds, which is a smite effectively, and they have a 4-up invulnerable save. T5 they lost a wound though, which is big. They used to be 4 wounds each, but now they're 3. So potentially good. Yeah,
One
probably not.
one thing I look at is would you want your zone throws to be within six of an enemy unit? Probably not. Um, but it depends though. So it depends on
Yeah.
the points, of course, for the Euthrop as well. But my thinking is like so far this codex seems melee oriented to me.
Hmm.
A lot of the stratagems work with melee. I think I could see a unit of zoanthropes to pop a rhino just
Yep.
to take
Yeah,
off
and the
open a
war print
transport.
probably as well.
But
Then we've got
but
the
at
Gene
least what I'm
Sealers, who
excited about
also
currently is the
scout
one
move
Ryan
6.
Sleepers and the
These are
Tyrant Guard
obviously
at the
spoiled
moment.
before. If you attack something, you always reroll a wound roll of 1.
Walkers with them,
Fantastic.
yeah.
And you can reroll the wound roll if they're on an objective marker. And you're going to have the Broodlord with him here as well. So you're going to get devastating wounds as well. So actually quite good because your 6s to wound are going to go into mortals. Then if you're within synapse range, you're going to get the exploded 6s
Oh my god, that combo, man.
automatically. You're going to get exploding 6s to hit. Sorry, so pretty good. 4 attacks each. They wounds 2 now, which is the big break point here. 5 of invulnerable save as previously. So Gene Seals plus a Broodlord, I think are going to be a good package that you're going to play. One thing that you're probably familiar with is the next one, Raveners. They lost 2 points of movement, which is big because there's no more advance and charge from what we can see. Now they move
Mhm.
10, but they do have 7 attacks, strength 5, -1, damage 1. They do have some shooting as well.
Yeah.
3 attacks, strength 4, 0, 1, which is fine. But they've got a pretty sweet ability, which notoriously has been good for Genie Seal Cult. At the end of your opponent's turn, if this unit is not within engagement range of one or more enemy units, you can remove it from the battlefield and place it into strategic reserves. Now, what seems good, but read it again. At the end of your opponent's turn.
Seems so
Opponent's
strong.
turn.
Oh my
It's
god.
not your turn. So, I mean, I think a lot of people are going to read that and think, wow, just like I
Opponent's
did.
turn.
But
Oh my
end of your
god.
opponent's turn, I'm sorry, man. That's basically a redundant start as far as I'm concerned.
Oh boy.
Yeah. Ooh, that's nice.
Good spot. One thing before we move on from the G-Stealers, they hit on 2-ups now, which is ridiculously important. Compared to the 3-ups, they're going to be
Yeah,
so much
yeah,
more consistent. The AP2 on top of that. I
yep.
am excited about the
Ripper
G-Stealers. I think
Swarms,
you'll want at least one
they're
unit
pretty
just for the
similar as
scout mode
before.
with the
Go on
Broodlord
enemy
just
units
to
with
attack
engagement range,
and
half the objective
get things
control.
done.
So not bad, but they are toughness 2, wounds 4. So they're okay. The Parasite of Mortrix is relatively the same. However, there's no 5 Obsec Warlord trait here. So the Parasite of Mortrix, he does have the lone operative keyword, which means that you can't target him, which is very powerful because basically he moves 12 as well. So you can go and zoom and do some objective stuff, but he's more or less probably an objective tangoer. at the start of the fight phase, you
Mhm.
can select enemy unit. That unit must take a battle shock test. So that's their way of replacing, I suppose, the 5 obsec thing. He's also got, if he destroys an infantry model with
Mhm.
his 1 attack anti-infantry thing, then you can create some Ripper Swarms as well. So Parasite Mortrix is okay. I would love to see him be cheap, 70 points, somewhere around there. Otherwise, it's going to be too expensive to play, I think. Yep.
Yeah, it doesn't seem as as straight to the point as it used to be. This seems
Yep.
spread
They're
out a
exactly
bit,
what they do.
and
You
I
get what's on
just
the data sheet,
really like
not
units that are kind
contextually
of
what
straight
might
to
be
the
good.
point,
The
like
Morlock.
the one Ryan
Okay,
Sleepers are seem to
is
be
this
at the
the
moment.
time where they're going to make the Morlock and the Trigon good? We're about to find out. Moves 10, toughness 10. So moves 10, which is,
Mhm.
2 more than normal. But 3 up
How many
save, no
how many
invulnerable
times did they
save.
try it? Oh my god!
He's got a distensible jaw, as he always does, which has 1 attack, which is devastating wounds. So you're just going to try and get a 6 to wound there. Good luck if you do. He's got Siling Talons. He's got 16 attacks, strength 8, -2 damage 1. Okay, not bad. I mean, you're going to need that because his model is really hard to get around the table. He's got the Terror from the Deep ability, which he used to have, which has actually gotten better, I think. It's whenever you deep strike, any enemy unit within 12 on a 2 to 4 suffers D3 mortals, on a 5 up suffers flat
Mhm.
3 mortals,
Yeah,
and must take a battle shock test. So this is where you get 3 units of zone thropes, and then you spam battle shock your opponent, hoping that you roll a 5 up for deep striking this bad boy. Right? Yeah, it's true. That's true. You can rapid ingress at the end of your opponent's phase with
I
this
mean
guy
rapid ingress, man.
behind a ruin,
Who
but within
knows?
12. And that's a really good point, actually. That is probably his best use case.
Mhm.
Yeah. Yep. Then we've got his big brother. Is it the big brother, the Trigon?
This
I
seems
think
interesting,
I
but
think
not
technically it is
maybe
his big
not an
brother,
auto
right?
take,
Because then there's no.
situationally good.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and there's no Trigon Prime, so we lost that bad boy. He's basically the same, but
The
he's got
original one,
12
yeah, the
attacks at
OG, yeah.
strength 9 -2 flat 3. Okay,
Mhm.
that's a that's okay. That profile is actually better than the Swarm Lord's damage profile. I'm just going to put that out there. So okay, pretty sick. Subterranean tunnels. Each time this model is set up on the battlefield using the deep strike ability, it can be set
Mhm.
up anywhere on the battlefield that is no more than 3 inches instead of 9. Although if you do that, you can't charge. So what you could,
It's always a bit awkward with these units how
yeah,
they're played. I mean, it does have double exploding sixes in the shooting, but
exactly,
still
yeah.
it's only 12-inch
Now
range.
we've got mucculid
Like,
spores. I'm going to cover muculid
let's
spores
hope
and
it's
the other
cheap.
ones at the
Hope
same
it's cheap.
time.
But this is
They're
basically
more or
just an
less the same
amateur,
as before, but
bruiser.
your opponent cannot end an advance move within 6 inches of this unit, which is a very unique ability I haven't seen anywhere. It basically flat out says you cannot advance within 6 inches of this unit. So potentially not bad. That is a very
In
good
addition, you cannot
pickup.
start an advanced
Enemy
move.
units
So
cannot
if you're
start
within
or
six on
end
a nuclear
advance moves
score,
within six
you
inches of
can't
this unit.
advance at
So
all.
potentially you could move block some people. That's interesting. They were obviously a bit of a terror in ninth edition as well. Spores being really powerful. All right, now we haven't seen much shooting, so
Yeah.
here we go. Here's one of the backliners, the Exocrine. Toughness 10, so okay, reasonably good toughness. It's 3 up base save, so okay. Wounds 14, cool. Now his gun is 36-inch range as it was before, D6 plus 3 shots, hits on 3s. It's heavy and blast, so if for some weird reason you were stationary, you're never going to be stationary with this guy because how are you going to see anything? Uh, so he will have an average of 6 attacks, hits on 3s, strength 8, -3 damage 3. So, you know,
Hmm.
not bad. And then one of his targeting abilities is after this model is shot, select one enemy unit hit by one or more of those attacks until the end of the phase.
Not
Each time
bad.
a
Yeah.
friendly Tyranid's model makes an attack that targets that unit, reroll a hit roll of 1. So you get to reroll ones to hit in the shooting for anything that this guy shot, which is not bad. It's probably just got a combo with other exocrines, I take it. um,
Not bad, yeah.
Get around there, hit on 2s.
I'm interested to combo this guy with the Walkrant.
Yeah, because you're
Be
going
on
to
the
need to
move,
advance and shoot.
advancing and firing. Well. You know, why not?
The Biovores. Do you want to cover this one?
Yeah. Oh yeah, one of my favorite units in 9th. Now they have the old one here on the photo, but it has essentially 4 wounds, 4 up save. Now it's got this Spore Mine Launcher, 48-inch range, indirect, heavy blast, and devastating wounds. D3 attacks, hits on force, 6, 1, 2. Not great, not bad. Let's hope he's cheap. Now it's got the Spore Seed action, which used to be the reason you took them before. Each time in your shooting phase, each time this unit is left to shoot, it can use the ability instead of making any attacks with its ranged weapons. If it does so, you can add new Spore Mines unit to your army and set it up anywhere within 48 of this unit and more than 9 horizontally away from all enemy units. That Spore Mine contains one model of each model in this unit.
It doesn't seem as good as it did
now,
before.
Are they really
you
going
get
back
one
to
Spore
that?
Mine per Biovore. So, not bad, but not fantastic, I would say. I think it did deserve a nerf in all seriousness, all right?
Yeah.
Yeah, you're right. Now, there's one guy that's gotten a huge.
They have to just be careful with the points cost on this, because if it's too cheap, you would be running a lot.
Piece of the Tyranid army, in my opinion. They're so thematic back to the original sculpts of these guys. Carnifexes are relatively the same for the ranged and melee weapons, but they got Blistering Assault, which is blisteringly good. Whenever you shoot this unit, after your opponent has shot the unit, you roll a d6, and you get d6 plus 2, and you have to move. And what you can do is you can move your Carnifex unit closer to the closest enemy unit. So you can also move that within engagement range as well. So each unit can only make 1 blistering assault move per phase. So you can't blisteringly move twice. But this is a huge bonus. Khorne Berserkers, the Berserkers for World Eaters were really popular and really good, and that was a really prevalent ability for them too. Notably, you could do this with old One Eye in the unit as well, right? So pretty powerful there as well. I'm going to jump on really quickly. We've got Screamer Killer, which we've already seen before, but then we've got the Terror of 9th edition as well, the Hive Guard, who is... Let's go for it.
I have one comment about the Biowar before we move on. Like, a thing that was noted in the last codex was that you could not screen people out with a single Spore Mine. Now, however, that rule is not in the datasheet for the Spore Mine. So let's say you were to take 2 or 3 single Biowars, you would use this ability.
Yep.
You could set up
then we've
3
got
single Spore Mines.
Now, guess what, guys? If you were looking for the one thing that was probably going to save this codex from
especially if you're doing a shooting based army,
super powerful, you were like, yes, okay, this stuff doesn't seem that overpowered, but don't worry, there's going to be Hive Guard. I'm sure Hive Guard are going to carry them. They're not. Hive Guard are not fantastic. I apologize. Games Workshop has learned their lesson here. There is lots of good indirect in the game, spoiled so far, but Hive Guard are not one of them. Their Impaler Cannon now is just 4 attacks, Strength 5, -1, Damage 1, in Heavy and Indirect. So they're probably going to hit, and there's Blister Skill 4 on that. So with Heavy, you might not move, and then you hit on 3s, but then you could take the Heavy penalty, the Indirect penalty, so you're probably going to hit on 4s. Basically means you get 2 hits. In addition to that, they have defensive stance, which means you can overwatch on 5s instead of that. So that's maybe the fringe use case for them, but you're probably going to take them with a Shot Cannon, which is just 24-inch range, anti-vehicle 2, so wounds vehicles on 2 ups. 2 shots, strength 7, -1, damage 3. The problem is that vehicles also get cover now, so your opponent's effectively going to be taking 3 up saves against this too. Hive Guard would have to be around the 35-point mark, I think, to see them here. Yeah. Yep. And then next up, big boy, toughness 12.
Wounding vehicles and 2 ups is something.
2 up save, toughness 12, 16 wounds. All right. What's going on here?
About that one.
Moves 9. Okay. And he's got -1 damage, which is very rare to see. It's the first time I've seen that. He's He's called a resilient organism.
Yeah.
You might.
Yeah.
I don't think you can take an enhancement on him, which is a shame. But he can. Let me just double check here. You can replace the flesh borer hive with the acid spray or the rupture cannon. Okay, so you get one of these guns here.
Oh, yeah,
The
okay.
acid spray is a D6 plus 6 flamer at 6 minus 2 damage to. Pretty good. The flesh borer hive is a heavy, exploding 6s, rerolling to wound. 20 shots, strength 5, minus 1, damage 1. Okay, you know, not minus 1, strength 5, 0, damage 1. Not bad. The rupture cannon, which is, obviously why you would play this thing. You wouldn't, spoiler alert. 2 attacks, hits on 3s, strength 18, minus 4, 2d6 damage. Strength 18. Is that good? I don't know, but 2d6 damage. I mean,
Strength 18. Think about that.
yeah.
That's a lot. I think like when you're killing vehicles, you need guns like this to make it work. Now hitting on 3s, wounding everything almost on 3s or 2s, and the AP4 I think is very important.
True.
I just cringe
so
at
if you've remained stationary, your opponent
the
runs the
2d6
tank
damage,
into you.
but
can
you
add
do
on twos.
hit. You
and
do
then
hit on
roll
2s
that
if you're
3
stationary.
damage because you rolled the 1 and the 2. Yeah, that's rough.
Yeah.
Yep. I would take the flamer.
Like, I have to say though, like if I was playing this, I would be looking at taking the flamer.
Seems like one of the
Overwatch,
more spammable data sheets
622,
because it's melee. It's
3-6
actually
for
got
6
4 attacks and
a
melee.
lot. You
Strength
have
8,
minus
0
1
AP,
damage
damage
base,
2.
16 wounds.
So
This
4
seems
attacks
good
at damage
to
2 as well.
Yeah.
You just yeet this thing into combat. Minus 1 damage.
Yeah.
2 up save. Toughness 12. And try and stat. That's the one stat checky thing I think we've seen so far. Let's go on the Tyranids site. We're going to skip the Hive Crone. It's just as bad as it was before. The Harpy is very similar, but it actually lost one of its guns. So they have done the Harpy dirty. It's pretty similar as it was before, guys, but it's actually lost D3 shots because its ranged weapon is now called a twin heavy venom cannon, which just has D3 shots, which is yeah.
Reroll to wound is something, but it's only strength 9. It used to be better in the last edition.
Yep.
If you fly over something, you can either do 6 dice, 3 up is a mortal wound, or spawn D3 spore mines.
But you're gonna need you're gonna need to infinity and beyond with Buzz Lightyear to make this thing work because I don't know, data sheet's not that impressive. It's probably gonna be like 160 points or something. So we're gonna skip the Sporicist low key if you want to look into it. Actually, not bad. It's not a fortification anymore, and it gets to overwatch your opponent for free up to 4 times. Not bad. But the end of the day is you got to deploy it. Your opponent knows where it is, and it can't move. So, is it really that good? Yep.
You can throw a Muclad Spore each shooting phase. 1 Muclad Spore is not a lot. It's not as good as a bunch of Spore Mines.
Yeah. We've got the Psychophage,
I'd be surprised.
which,
this would be very cheap.
For before. The one thing I would note about this guy is that
which is units that I'm not a fan of.
Is either going to be an auto include because of one ability, which is the Tyranid models. Tyranid units get a 6-up Feel No Pain within 6 inches of this unit. An army-wide 6-up Feel No Pain is no joke. So 6-up Feel No Pain from the Psychophage, 6-up Invulnerable Save from the Zoanthrope, and you play 300 Termagants and 3 Tervigans, and maybe you got something. Doesn't seem bad. The Barbagaunts, with their infamous Disruption Bombardment, is the subtract 2 from the move, charge, and advance rolls. These guys are not bad. They're probably going to be played best from outflank. People have discussed these a lot. I'm a little bit skeptical as to how many infantry units you're actually going to have to shoot with them, because if your opponent knows you have them, they're probably going to be keeping their infantry units a little bit safe, and then they might be a little bit expensive, and they're AP 0, so they're probably not going to do any damage. Yeah.
What I wonder about is what can you take six
Yeah.
of
What was your?
points,
I was going to say, what is
where
your
you're
top
not
three?
locked
You
to
think
just three. That's something that I worry about.
that you've actually been impressed with?
But yeah,
What is
that's
your
the last
overall
data
take, and then
sheet.
what is your top three?
I wondered, you wanted to my top three?
Yeah. Lots slow down.
I think my overall take is that the biggest thing missing, I think, is advance and charge. Tyranids just got a lot slower,
Mm-hmm.
looks to me. Uh, I can't see a unit
Mm-hmm.
working very well that only moves 6 inches and charges. Basically, that's we're almost Death Guard territory at the moment in 9th edition. So any sort of fast shooting army would just be plowing you, or tearing you apart. So no advance in charge. It's less janky. It's more just kind of showing up. I'm interested to see how this plays. I would be surprised having seen the tank shock
Yep.
stratagem that you would be taking a lot of monsters compared to,
Yep.
let's say, just
That would be
going
very
for
good in this
Chaos
codex if
Knights.
you could
Like in
take
9th
on
edition,
monsters.
you
Actually.
would rather take Chaos Knights than Monster Mass Tyranids. I think that'll still be the thing because you can't use the tank shock mortal wounds for a monster. Like
Mm-hmm.
so, looking at, let's say, the Gaunt carpet, you would take 6 of Feel No Pain and -1 to hit in shooting. Doesn't seem too exciting to me. Like the units that I'm interested in here would be the Tyrant Guard.
Yeah.
I like the Von Ryan's Leapers with the tennis move. I think for me, if obviously we might have units that are ridiculously undercosted, and then we'll
Yep.
be looking at those,
And
spamming
I
those.
think
But if we assume that things are going to be reasonably well pointed, I would be looking
yeah.
at 3 units of the Von Ryan's Death Leapers.
Yeah. And I think
Maybe like 1 Lictor,
after
some
reading through it and
Tyrant
talking
Guard,
with
and
you, I
maybe
think
a
it's
Tyrannofax or
probably fair to
2,
say that this
and
is
2 or
going to be a
3
mid-tier
Bio
codex,
Wars
right?
just to deny
At best.
screens.
Unless, obviously we don't know the points, guys, but nothing outright jumped at me after reading all these data sheets for a second time through. Like, oh, this is really powerful. Like, I think the Broodlord plus Gene Stealers, redeploying and, moving and charging someone going first is quite good. But it's a little bit hard to set up. The Swarm Lord is quite reasonable. There are some things that are really tanky. So I do like the look of the tankier monsters. I actually like the Maleceptor. I thought he was not bad. And then I also like the units that you mentioned as well. I thought were great. The Von Ryan's Leapers. And then I thought the Turvagon was good, but I thought the Tyrannofix was good too. I could see the Tyrannofix being good if it's hard to kill. If your opponent doesn't show up with the right tools for the game, then you've got a Tyrannofix that's potentially very difficult to kill. And the Flamer, I think, is actually quite good as well. And his objective secured 5. So, not bad. Yeah.
Not bad, yeah. I mean,
Yep.
the things that jumped out to me, like if you go through the whole codex,
Yep.
5 up, Feel No Pain on Tyrant Guard, taking 6. Full reloads to hit on Tyrant Guard with the Swarm
Yep.
Lord. Getting the 5 up auto wound against the vehicles, or the 5 up exploding hits against infantry. Like, that's something to me. The Von Ryan Sleepers with the fight first, I think moving 10 is just so important.
Yeah.
Like,
I think
with those units, I think you could make things happen. But still,
given the
like, if you're
footprint, I
going
think
up
that this
to
army
against
will
a
have
fast
on the
shooting army,
table,
it's
going to be
very
difficult
difficult.
when
But I
you
think,
just think about
those
walking your army
two
across
blocks
the table
seem okay to me.
to try and get to your opponent. We'll have to see. It's very one-dimensional, if
Yeah.
I'm being honest. It's very move my guys. It's very undynamic. Let's hope that perhaps something like Rapid Ingress, something like that, will hope. Will save melee armies that are kind of bound to this spectrum of play. But I think it's an interesting start. Well, it's a good benchmark to see what other armies have, and see other data sheets. But yeah, thematically pretty cool. I think their psychic is a substantially nerfed to where it used to be. That's very disappointing. Tyranids used to have the Shadow and the Warp. They used to be kings of the Warp. They used to be the best psychics with zoned ropes, but lo and behold, not anymore.
Oh,
So
yeah, for sure.
that's our kind of wrap up of the Tyranid Codex, guys. Long one. Might be the longest episode. We actually ran through every single data sheet, and I hope you guys really enjoyed it. This has been Jokull from Team Ignite. Jokull, it was a pleasure having you on again. You're on in for the one of the long ones, as it would seem. Thank you very much. Thanks for everyone who's listening. If you've gotten to this part of the podcast, then you're either painting or doing something in the background.
it was a blast.
Always hope you've had a good time. We're going to be talking a lot about 10th edition stuff, and we're probably going to be getting, hopefully, we're going to be getting some guests on for basically everything, all the data sheets that's been spoiled. So, a lot of talking. We'll give you the heads up on what's going to be looking good to invest in. I think if I was going to do an investor grade, I'd give this one a B minus. I wouldn't be going out and buying any models thinking that some of these things are going to be stellar. But if I were, I'd be looking maybe at Carnifexes or Von Ryan Leapers, which I think you could probably use the old Lictor model for personally. There we go. Hope you've had a good one. Fireside, episode 26. We'll catch you guys later.